Hello, beautiful friend. Welcome to this episode. We are talking today all about the power of reinventing yourself. So, I myself have been going through a bit of a reinvention and have been absolutely experiencing this power. And that's why I want to talk with you about it today. And the first thing that I want to say about it is there's a quote by Gandhi that I wish I had memorized, and I wish I would have looked it up before I hit record. But it essentially points to the fact that you as a human innately have the ability to reinvent yourself at any time. Now, we don't typically relate to ourselves this way. We don't typically view ourselves as malleable, as changeable. We have a tendency to view ourselves and each other in this fixed way, like we are the way that we are and will always be that way. And it's not the truth. It is absolutely not the truth. We are changeable and malleable, and we are transformative beings at our very core. And if you just look and just think back to how you came into the world as a newborn baby, and then you were an infant, and then you were a toddler, and then you were a kid, and then you were a teenager, and so on. At the core foundation is this ability to grow, ability to change. And in many ways, that change and that transformation happens organically and happens naturally. However, we also have the ability to actually initiate that change. And I know for me, I'm experiencing this in my business, but I feel like whenever we evolve our businesses, our lives are naturally evolving and vice versa. I'll just share because it's just top of mind that I'm doing this website launch because I finally finished my new website. I actually moved my website from WordPress to Squarespace, and no offense to WordPress, but best thing I ever did. And it really is in my heart when I feel into it. It's the website I've always wanted. It has the offers I've always wanted to offer at the price points I've always wanted to offer. And for me, behind that, or what's underneath that, was I had to uncover that I had this belief that I can't actually have things the way that I want. And I think that's a common limiting belief that we tend to have as humans, where we literally just think that something is simply the way that it is. And we just accept that it is that way, rarely challenging it. And even I'll go so far as to say that even when something feels like a struggle or feels like a challenge and essentially feels like it's not what we want, we'll tolerate that and we'll build up this tolerance to it. Ultimately, what is familiar is comfortable to us. And so any and all change, even if it's change for the better, even if it's the kind of change that has you feeling really fulfilled, has you feeling really proud of yourself, has you really having the thing that you want, that change is still uncomfortable because you're not on autopilot anymore. Like it requires something of you, it takes something of you. And I just think it's so important that we remind ourselves, and perhaps if you're watching this or listening to this, you need to be reminded that you have the ability to fully become a totally new human being and live a totally new life if that is what you choose, if that is what you desire. Again, my first point was just really inspired by that quote by Gandhi, which I am going to find it and I'll paste it in the show notes or the description. But that you innately, as just by simply being human, have the power within you to completely reinvent who you are, how you be, how you behave, and literally create totally new circumstances for yourself. The second point I wanted to make about that is, how do you actually initiate that? Like, I know for me, taking the example of my whole website journey, I had to do a bit of a review. And oftentimes, like we know the change that we want to make, we know what it is that we want. We also know that it's going to require a level of discomfort, a level of work. doing things. So in my case, I literally had to do the things. I had to transfer the domain. I had to make all the pages. Like there was actual work involved to create this thing. And I thought about it for a really long time. I talked about it for a really long time. And then I actually ended up hiring a coach to hold me accountable to do it because I had already observed that I was just going to keep doing the same thing over and over again. And my point is that doing a review of what are the things that you have been talking about that you've been wanting to do that you haven't done. And I don't know if you remember, there was a Doreen Virtue deck. I think it's her mermaid deck that she has a card that says life review. And that card to me always meant like a moment in time where you take a step back and really take a look at your life. What's working? What's not working? Do I have what I want? Are there changes that I can make? And what am I going to do about it? But sometimes before the actual action, there is a thought process. There is a sifting process that we need to go through. We need to sift through our feelings about it, sift through our perceptions about it. Is it really worth it to us to go for it, to take the action? And if you're in that place where something needs to change, that you are wanting to reinvent yourself in some way, give yourself that time to actually sit back and review, sift through. I know for me in doing that and then putting in place what I actually needed to put in place to take the action. In my case, it was having that external accountability, putting money on the line, having somebody that I can talk to in Boxer, having somebody that I could, in the weeks that I was really blowing it off, I would own up to that and put things in place because I knew I had to answer to somebody. So that was just what was going to support me. You've got to take a look at in your life review, in what's working, in what it is that you want, in the new actions that you may need to take. Are you going to take them? Can you trust yourself in your own personal internal accountability? And if not, will you take the action to get the support that you need to actually bring that into existence? I really believe that this process of reinvention, there's an internal piece of it and there's an external piece of it. Now, you can literally become somebody completely new in an instant. Have you ever had a situation occur, whether it be the loss of someone or some major change, and it was like who you were changed forever? I know for me, and this is partially vulnerable share here, like when I lost my mom back in 2021, when I was literally going through the periods of weeks of learning of her diagnosis and then taking care of her while she was in hospice, and then that period of time, there was a me that emerged that I almost didn't even know was there. Like I did, but there was this, you could almost say like my higher self, this leader like came out of me and I just knew what to do. I just knew it was all going to be okay. I was so fully present and alive and just there for the life experience. It really changed me. The experience completely, you could say, reinvented me in that moment. And I really believe that even when we go through really hurtful or challenging circumstances in our lives, there's always a gift. There's always a gift in it. I personally believe, and I invite you to take this on if it works for you, that if you're going through something challenging, God wouldn't have you go through that without providing you some major golden nuggets. If you have the eyes to see them, if your heart is open to really look for them and cultivate them, they will come. And I know that new way of being this leader in life emerged for me out of that scenario. I was changed by that. And you don't have to wait for an external experience like that to change you. Literally, new ways of being are available to you. And who you be on a moment by moment basis, who you be on a day to day basis makes up your behavior, makes up your personality over time because it compounds. I love how Joe Dispenza breaks this down. I can't remember exactly which book, but he really talks about it in all of his work that, that one of the things is how a personality is created. And he has these stages where it's first you'll have an experience of an emotion and how our emotions become habitual. Because again, change is unfamiliar, right? Where for feeling the same things over and over again, it's easier to just feel the same things over and over again. And in his meditations, he'll ask you to really acknowledge the way that you have been being that you don't want to be anymore. And then start to focus your attention on what way of being you do want to become. What would that feel like? It's literally this process of inviting those new feelings into your experience. And as you're inviting those new feelings into your experience, literally your physiology is being affected by that. Your mind and your body are starting to practice and rehearse. And then that new feeling, that new way of being starts to become a little more familiar to you the more and more that you practice it. So, again, what I'm pointing to here is that we have this conscious ability to direct that reinvention of who we are and how we show up, of who we want to be. And really, this is just to remind you that whatever way of being that you don't love about yourself, whatever circumstance is before you that you don't want to have anymore, you absolutely have the power to reinvent. And there are infinite possibilities of which you can choose from to take those next steps forward. I think one of my gifts and talents, and I know this from, so when I work with one-on-one clients, I have them do their Myers-Briggs. I'm fascinated by a Myers-Briggs. I like all of the tools that help us see ourselves in these different lenses. One of the things I learned from that is that even though you show up predominantly as a certain personality type, it does not mean that you do not have access to other aspects of personality. They are just more underdeveloped. So we have the ability to round out our personality to even really invent a new possibility. I don't know if we could actually change our Myers Briggs. I don't know enough about it. So let me know if, however, our experience of ourselves is absolutely changeable. So I would love to hear from you. Are you in the process of reinventing yourself? Do you love this idea of reinvention? Do you regularly check in with yourself of, am I showing up as who I want to show up as? And if not, how am I going to reinvent myself? What new pathways and possibilities are available to me? And just asking yourself that question, just being in that inquiry is going to make a gigantic difference for you because you'll actually start to open up new thoughts and new ways of seeing things. And that reminds me of from A Course in Miracles, there's a prayer to be able to see things differently. Really, that reinvention process starts with our ability to see new possibilities, to see ourselves differently, to see our circumstances differently, and to see what's possible for us differently. So, this can be really simple. And I think oftentimes we'll have so much resistance to change. We'll have so much resistance to the unknown that we'll just avoid it and not really delve into it. And then we'll actually miss the magic that occurs when we are allowing ourselves to shift and change and transform. Let me know what you think about that. Let me know where you're at in your transformation and reinvention process. I would love to hear, and I will see you in the next one.